I am much more at peace and just out of that chronic state. And every time I've had a shift, which generally has come off the back of, a tipping point where there's a purge and there's a massive degree of density and really old, deeply fenced pain and grief that's released, everything gets lighter. And I can see it in real time in Harry's state. So we've just kind of been dropping deeper and deeper into peace, and we're not living in that chronic state.
Imagine discovering a pathway that cuts through the noise of trying to heal, to instead offer you a clear, revolutionary initiation into your most connected, abundant, loved, and purpose-filled self. A place where your dreams transform into personal reality. I'm Allura Halliwell, founder of the Consciousness Method, and it's with deep gratitude that I connect with beautiful souls who have already experienced this transformative method firsthand. They'll share how it has profoundly changed their lives and led them into inner truth. Hello, Jackie. I'm so honored and excited to have you here today. I feel very blessed to have you have a chat with me for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been huge. So yeah, it's really good to be here. I'm looking forward to diving in.
Beautiful. So I think maybe it's just a really good place to start if you're happy just to share a little bit about where you were before we kind of connected and started the journey together, just to give some context for everyone to understand what you've traversed.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I guess where I started when we first connected and began the work together, I was in a chronic state of crisis, I suppose. I was very dysregulated, and what was going on in terms of my external environment, probably the biggest challenge and expression of that was navigating some really tough years with my eldest son, Harry, who is on the autism spectrum. And with that comes a lot of really big challenges, but I would say the greatest challenge for Harry is emotional regulation. He has incredibly high levels of anxiety and a lot of shame and low self-esteem. And where things were at the time we began, there was just a lot of capital T kind of trauma events that were back then kind of a normality. They were a regular occurrence in our life. I mentioned to you the other day when we first started talking about doing this chat, I actually listened to the recording of our very first call because I just wanted to give myself a bit of a temperature check and a reminder of like where we've come from then to here. And I was talking to you a lot about, frustrations I was experiencing in terms of feeling like things were so chaotic and I was so exhausted that I could just never get on top of anything. And I said quite casually, yesterday I didn't even get up till midday and I'm feeling really frustrated with myself. But I was in hospital with Harry the night before because there'd been an incident where he was physically unsafe and expressing desires to not be alive anymore, and his younger brother had to call 000. And so that was, I guess, how acute things were with what I was navigating. And it was interesting listening to that call because I sounded so detached when I was describing that event. So I was not in my body. I was kind of a head on a stick with crazy amounts of chaos on the daily. And yeah, life is very much not functioning. I was not functioning. So it was pretty dire. So that's where we started.
My heart, Jackie, my heart for you and the journey you've been on with the boys and yourself. It's just feeling and hearing you express that. I just want to honor that version of you because she was just in such a strong survival mode. So wanting to survive, right? And so wanting to get through that. And just, I feel like she is such a big part of you being where you are now. So I just really want to honor her for being so strong to transverse that space and the
Yeah.
intensity of it, because it was
Mm.
huge, huge.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, she's amazing. And is it just okay if maybe we jump to now, so we just
Mm.
feel into about where you are now, and then we can maybe just pull some threads of the journey that really helped you to land where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess where we are now is that I've been, I guess, on a massive process of down regulation, just becoming incrementally safer and safer in my body. And so there's a lot of fear and pain that's being discharged progressively. So, I guess what that looks like is really good co regulation between, I guess, not just Harry and myself, but, you know, every pillar of life. But Harry is the biggest mirror and I guess the loudest cry and expression of my internal state. So he's always the best barometer for me to kind of gauge things with. And so those events, we don't have them anymore. There's very little yelling in the home. Like there's just a lot more peace. I am much more at peace, just out of that chronic state. And every time I've had a shift, which generally has come off the back of, a tipping point where there's a purge and there's a massive degree of density and really old, deeply fenced pain and grief that's released, everything gets lighter. And I can see it in real time in Harry's state. So we've just kind of been dropping deeper and deeper into peace, and we're not living in that chronic state. There's much more harmony. And it's interesting to see that play out in my youngest son, because I see this time and time again, when things are safe enough for a long enough time and consistently enough, which they very much are now, well, then he has an opportunity to express his stuff. And
More space.
yeah, just space and safety. So,
I have
and
goosebumps.
yeah, it's really interesting because when we started, I had a lot of like intellectual understanding of this. I had done so much work over the last 20 years, just psychedelics and breath work and talk therapy and psychotherapy and family constellations and TCM, like just all the things. And so with that, I was able to sort of start our process with a lot of conscious awareness around, that sense of not being safe. That's not something that was a response to my challenges with Harry. That has been my state since the womb. And that was also my mum's experience and my dad's experience. And it's very much been Harry's experience. And so what I knew was that, okay, I don't think I've ever fully felt safe here in my body. And I know that Harry never has. So that's what I knew. But I think what this work that I've done with you has allowed me to know is that there's a massive body of pain that has been a consequence of living a life in chronic survival where, I've kind of more or less lived most of my life in fear of connection, fear of people. And so the impediment that puts on your personal growth and just every aspect of your life really is huge. And so, yeah, what I've come to understand is that I understand all the story of how and why that is, but what I didn't really understand was that all of that has resulted in a massive accumulation of grief and sadness. And yeah, and I suppose essentially that's what the work has been with you. It's just being hyper aware of that. It's like an intense study of like, okay, what is truly going on, and just going there, deep diving
Yeah.
into the pain. And so it's really so simple. It's like just feeling the pain. And every time more is felt and more is shifted, there's more and more liberation. And then there's more and more internal safety and spaciousness. And so it goes. Yeah. So that's kind of the nature of what it's been.
That's so profound, Jackie, just to hear you express it in that way, just that really deep embodiment of your relationship with your own pain.
Mm,
And then that bringing you such, yeah, as you say, a deep sense of internal safety that your consciousness can shift to see the wider picture, the wider patterning, the path of reconnection to yourself and your reality around you. And I think
mm,
you've just expressed that so beautifully. And I think just that reflection of that we bring the intellectual knowing of this into the body and into the safety of the body is
mm,
such a profound journey home,
mm.
really, to ourselves and our
Absolutely.
freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of, yeah, home, like home. I mean, when you're in fear, it's the opposite of love, right? So if we're in love and safety, well, we're in our heart, we're in our body, we're feeling all the sensations and we're feeling them without inhibition, I suppose, without armor,
Mhm.
because there's nothing to fear. It's like, okay, well, there's sadness here, there's grief here, there's love, like all of it's okay. Everything's okay. I've never lived from everything's okay until now, ever. I just didn't realize it. I would describe it in terms of, oh, I'm struggling because I have a son with high needs, or oh, I've got social anxiety, or I've got depression. And I guess, yeah, those are just words that we can wrap around the things that we're experiencing when we're just walking around with a ton of unprocessed trauma. That's all
Mm.
it is.
And I just really honor and love that expression of that everything's okay. How do you
Mm,
think anchoring that frequency, that knowing, that consciousness, that safety in the body, all the spectrum of that
mm,
has impacted in real time on Harry and Huey? Just
mm.
in you knowing that safety and providing that safe anchor for them to know that safety for themselves.
Profoundly. I mean, I shouldn't say in particular Harry, because it's been just as huge for Huey. Because when I have responded to really hectic situations of dysregulation in Harry, and when I'm responding as like the toddler with an underdeveloped nervous system that's also in chronic fear, and I feel like, when there's really big stuff going on and I'm responding to that from fear, that looks like, yelling and also completely missing the pain and the sadness or the unmet need that Harry has been expressing. And
Mm.
from a fear based, I guess, a childlike state of development, because I suppose that's what trauma does, it just arrests that aspect of development, things get really out of hand. And
Mm.
yes, it is true that, you know, the challenges with Harry are extreme, but it's also true that when I respond as a regulated adult and not a scared little girl, that things don't escalate to those points where 000 and hospital visits and all of that shit are going down. And so, what that means for the boys is that we don't have to go to those places anymore. And
Mm.
so, I don't think it's an understatement to say that it's life altering, because none of us are sort of living in that much trauma and that much fear. I remember Huey saying to me one day, I don't like it when policemen come over, and I don't like having to live like this. And I don't hear Harry saying, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be alive anymore. That's not a regular thing. And so
Mm.
that is everything, because living like that is not survivable, And it was about, I think it was almost exactly 1 year before we started last May, things had deteriorated to a point where, yeah, living that way, it wasn't survivable. And I was very much in that state of, I don't want to be here, because
Mm.
I cannot see how this ever shifts or gets better, because I was so flooded by the intensity and the relentlessness and the complexity of it.
Mm.
That was where I was living from. I don't want to be here, but I can't not be here because I have these beautiful boys. And so I would often fantasize that like I'd never been born. And yeah, there was a point where I ended up in hospital one night in the psych ward, not because I was ever taking actions, but, someone in my family knew where I was at in terms of my state being that low and that thought being prominent, and alerted, a check-in, and it resulted in me spending a night in the hospital. And I didn't want to go because I was like, I would never, ever remove myself or subject myself or my kids to that. But, you know, and
There's that
I
deep trapping, right? That deep
just,
trapping of consciousness.
yeah,
That there's no way out, that there's,
no,
and that's the scariest thing about that state of fracture,
mm,
that it really feels like there is no alternative than this existence.
yeah,
And again, honoring that version that felt so trapped and so imprisoned in that pain, in the nervous system, in the mental system of the mind and the body and the reality.
yeah, so trapped and so helpless that it was like, you know what, I would actually rather jump into an ambulance and go and spend a night in hospital than have to deal with the home front for tonight.
Mm.
And that was a better choice than going to the school pickup and going, oh my God, like, what am I going to get? And how am I going to do this for another day?
And can I just like reflect in on that piece? It's almost like I know there's a lot of kind of, support around how to meet your child when they're in that state and what to do and what to
Mm,
say. And we did very little of that, really. Focus so innately on you and your safety and your transmutation of your pain and your connection to yourself and your liberation of yourself. And that just really organically led you to know how to connect and be that support for Harry. Like it was
mm.
very just innate and there for you. Can you just reflect on that shift of consciousness in yourself where you just like you knew what he needed and how to be with him from how you were
Mm.
with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It was because I think what I'd come to understand that a large part of what was always going on for me internally was resistance. You know, it's like you have this experience of like, this is painful, I'm scared. And so we want to run from the pain and we shove it down and we fence it. And so we're in resistance. And
Mm.
so I guess I became to understand more deeply that I had been massively in resistance to Harry even from conception. It wasn't planned. So there was this resistance to like, I'm not ready. And then the resistance to, oh my God, this is turning out to be incredibly hard and painful. And so resisting the pain and resisting those aspects of him, you know, all behaviors of communication. So when he's literally kicking and screaming, he's telling me in no uncertain terms that like, you're not seeing me, you're not feeling me, I'm not safe here. And so
Mm.
I just found myself, as you said, organically just dropping into this out of the fear and resistance and just dropping into this unconditional acceptance, this radical acceptance of
Mm.
everything. And I wouldn't say it with my words because Harry, he doesn't like, I consider Harry to be quite telepathic. His whole system is so flooded with overwhelm and overstimulation and words, and that doesn't always land. But I would sit there and often in response to him being dysregulated, and I'd find myself not in panic or fear or overwhelm. I would just find myself feeling all of this love and just conveying to him, like just with my, not words, but my energy, just like, oh, I'm so sorry that you are so scared and you're so overwhelmed. And I'm here for all of it. Like,
Mm.
I'm here for all of you. And there was one incident in particular where I was like, I'll never forget it because it was the first time I had been able to respond really calmly to an episode that was really full on and not just respond, because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm responding calmly, but inside I'm still in overwhelm and fear. That it was like we were in the car and Harry was so upset that he'd hurt himself and he was smashing his laptop. And I felt completely calm and I wasn't
Mm.
speaking. I was just sitting there, just letting him know without my words that, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, all of this is okay. You're okay. Like, there's nothing about you or this that isn't okay, and fully loved and
Mm.
fully allowed. And so I guess that was the process was mutual, you know, as I was sort of feeling more into that for me, it was just naturally unfolding in the state that I was in with Harry.
Jackie, it's so profound. It's so deep. the
Mm,
level that you've met yourself to meet Harry in that way. And that's such an important aspect, I think, of this kind of consciousness is the reality reflection is, as you said before, the barometer of where you are internally.
mm,
And it's your evolution as much as Harry's that you've met that part of you and made that part of you so safe. And he's just allowed to create that safety now for himself in a
mm,
safe space. So the energetic resonance of that is just so profound and deep and has
mm.
changed the trajectory for the reality that you guys are all experiencing together. So I just really honor that for you. And I suppose a question is, were there aspects of sort of the mentorship that you found maybe took you to different places and different understandings, as well as the pain and fear aspect, but any other aspects that really connected dots for you to allow this kind of awareness to come through?
It's hard to pinpoint like the nature of the mentorship, like what specifically it was about the mentorship that really joined the dots. I think it's just the process as a whole being as immersive as it
Mm.
is, because you are looking at something very deeply and very closely. I liken it to an optical illusion. It's like you can look at it and you're like, there's no picture of a woman there. That's just lines and dots. But then if you look at it closely enough for long enough, then you see it. And you can never unsee it. Like you can't unscramble those eggs. And I think it's like that intense pattern recognition. It's like, you know, I'm checking in with you every day, like every time I'm in the work or I don't want to be in the work or I'm resisting or I'm feeling it's like the high frequency of like, you got to keep coming back. You got to keep coming back and looking at the picture until you can see what's really going
Mhm.
on in it. And probably one of the biggest and most amazing examples of that is one of the biggest challenges I've had with how I've navigated everything with Harry is that his diet. So if he has gluten in his diet, it basically amplifies his autism by 1,000%. Like it is night and day. He's a different kid when he does not have the right sort of dietary protocols in place. And, you know, his dad, who I co parent with, we're not together anymore, has pretty different views on food. He just doesn't see it in the same way. And so over the last 4 or 5 years, I had kind of been annihilated with grief because by the time Harry was 10, I had done so much work on his diet, his biochemistry, and his brain development that he was almost present as a neurotypical kid. And
Mm.
then, you know, changes were made to the diet that were out of my control and not by my choice, and it destroyed me. And I remember at the beginning of the second mentorship, I was really wrestling with that. And you said to me, it's not about the food. This is not entirely about the food. This is about all of the fear and the pain. And like you're using the food as a mechanism to feel the fear and the pain that hasn't yet been resolved. And I couldn't see it. And I was like,
Mm.
you're wrong, Alora. That's not true. Like, I have read books and I've listened to countless people and I've listened to all their podcasts about how they've fully recovered their kids, and none of them have done it without removing gluten. And what happened over the course of that second mentorship was that Harry's diet continued to be unhealthy, and it still is. But despite the diet still being what it is, those internal shifts that I had resulted in radical shifts in Harry. And so what I was able to see was that, like, yes, it is objectively true that, like, the diet is a massive factor, but just as important is
Mm.
my internal state. And yes, I built a house that was like, oh my God, it's everything's gluten free and Harry's really regulated. But the foundation of that house was still loaded with all of this unprocessed fear in me. So that house was never going to stay up. Like it
Mm.
was never going to stick because, you know, his dad came along and changed the diet. And then I'm back in the, oh my God, see, I'm unsupported, I'm unloved, everything's against me and everything's all on me and up to me and I'm alone and blah, blah, blah. And it's like now that so much of that clearing has been done, it's taken so much of the charge of like fear and panic and distress. All of that charge has been removed from the whole food thing. And until that whole pillar was relieved of such an intense charge of fear and pain, it would never ultimately have stuck. And so that kind of blows my mind that I can sit here and be so at peace with like, oh, yeah, he's eating really shit food, but everything's okay. We're working it out bit by bit. I'm building my capacity. I'm in recovery. I am still pretty exhausted. That's okay. I'm less exhausted than I was a month ago, a year ago. So it's just that
Wow.
knowing that, like, oh, okay, yeah, it's okay. Like, just rebuild yourself, keep going, keep strengthening. It will come. It's all going to be okay. As opposed to like, fuck, I'm never going to heal him. He's always going to be autistic because I'm never going to get his dad on board. And fear
Mm.
was just at the core of everything, panic. So that's massive.
Jackie,
Yeah.
I've just got goosebumps all over my body. That's such a profound share. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that, because you're fully sinking into the incredibly potent creator you are, which is not coming from your physicality. It's coming from your internal state and your internal alignment and your internal peace and your internal expansion. That just means that everything is safe around you. That means that you can incrementally shift in reality because it's not fixed anymore. It's not fixed from your fear. So it's an open place and an open space now that you can expand and grow into and experiment and orientate yourself how you will, because it's not held by that fear. And
Yeah.
I've seen it just also in you, in how you've come into that deeper relationship with yourself and your own body and your own food and your own nurturing. And that template feels so potent in its flow and effects for everyone around you, because you're honoring yourself so deeply and thoroughly. So I just want to really reflect how beautiful that process is and how nourishing that process is on so many levels. And just witnessing you change that lens was like, oh, such a radical gift. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for you.
Yeah.
Really, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. Radical is absolutely the word for sure.
Before we finish up, I just want to reflect on another piece in this, is that it's not like a magic pill. Like, we don't swallow this work and then we become perfect and everything feels ideal in all levels. What I sense about this work is that it's the tools and the template for our most powerful path of evolution, which means that we can keep using the material from our external reality to keep evolving ourselves through those wounded, painful, fear, separated victim aspects of ourselves, to keep being in creation with reality. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. It's funny we're having this conversation today because yesterday was a really hard day. And, Harry became quite upset in a significant way. And what I would have done historically is gone, oh God, see, nothing's working, nothing's sticking. Like, that's not to say I wasn't exhausted and frustrated and sad and stressed. I was all of those things. And I went to bed zombie tired, feeling just drained and defeated. But then I can today reflect and go, like, yeah, it's not a silver bullet. Like, this is a process. It's a process of refinement and unbecoming and, unlearning and then learning and unlearning all at the same time. I think it's necessary to have that continuum of, those same stresses or triggers, because it gives us the mirror to go, oh yeah, like, yeah, of course I'm going to still experience anger and despair, but not to the same degree, and I'm experiencing them in a different way, and I'm not attaching, black and white nihilistic meanings to it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, today sucked, but everything's okay. We're getting there.
I love that. It's so real and valid and transparent, because that's what it is. And that's what I believe is the truth about our evolutionary path here. We're not going to be enlightened. We're not going to be one spectrum humans where everything is peace, love, and joy. It's absolutely going to be this journey of, like, the gift is the journey of that full emotional experience and spectrum, where we can actually have every emotion and every reflection be a part of a wholeness of us and
Mm,
just a gift of life, really. Yeah, while
yeah.
seeing the bigger picture is gently evolving to more and more wholeness and more safety and more connection.
Mm,
So I just want to honor
yeah.
you so deeply, Jackie, just to journey with you as being an absolute gift. And I feel so much love for the boys and for you. So thank you so much.
Mm. Oh, thank you. And equally, I feel so much love for you and so grateful that I said yes to it because it's, yeah, truly game changing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my love. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. And to say thank you, I'd like to share with you 3 beautiful meditations to explore your core wounding and a collection of masterclasses. You'll find these in your show notes. And if you feel the synergy to this path, know that it is available to you also.